week 6 of the fantasy baseball season. And here's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for this week. The first hitter, Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals. So Paul Goldschmidt, I mentioned him a few weeks ago in the buy low video, and he just been struggling all season and really struggling mightily on the year. 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, 16 runs scored, a 198 batting average, a stolen base, and a 297 on base. A Goldschmidt, he just can't get anything going for the St. Louis Cardinal team. And I did mention this in the other video as well a few weeks ago, that maybe his best years are behind him and Father Time is catching up to a former MVP, because Goldschmidt, he's had all-star seasons pretty much his whole career, dating back to Arizona Diamondbacks, and now the first few seasons with this St. Louis Cardinal team, he was an all-star, but last year fell off a little bit, and now this year he's really free-falling. In the first month and a half, May 3rd versus the White Sox 0-3 a run, May 4th versus the White Sox 0-5, May 5th versus the White Sox 0-4, May 6th versus the Mets 0-3 with a run, and May 7th versus the Mets 0-5. So Goldschmidt, he hasn't had a hit all month. He's in a bad slump for this St. Louis Cardinal team. And I thought in that doubleheader April 30th, he was starting to turn the corner a little bit where he went 5-9. But ever since then, he's been hitless, is Goldschmidt, in 8 games in a row. So right now, his value is very low, and you don't have to give up much to get him. A back end of the rotation type of starting pitcher, I think possibly could get the deal done. But Goldschmidt, we know he's been off to slow starts in his career as well and to pick things up. And last season, 25-80, so I don't really think he's washed up. He definitely could took another step back. He is Goldschmidt, but I don't think he's totally finished, and he'll figure things out. So right now, well, his value is totally at the lowest point it's been in his career for fantasy baseball over the years. He's a buy low this week. The next hitter, another first baseman, Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves. I mentioned Olson a lot this year as well, and very concerning, no doubt about it. Olson, 54 home runs, leading the league last season, and this year it's been a mighty slump for him, and he hasn't hit a home run now in 24 games, where it seemed like last season he hit a home run every other game was Matt Olson. So on the season for Olson, 3 home runs, 16 RBIs, 14 runs scored, an awful 197 average, and a 317 on base. So right now his value is at the lowest it's been in a very long time for Matt Olson. He's just not hitting the baseball. He's not hitting home runs, which obviously is a specialty. And the only positive for him is still a high on-base percentage, hitting under 200. But his on-base is over 315. So the last few games for Olson, May 1st at the Mariners, 1-for-3 in RBI. May 3rd at the Dodgers, 0-4. May 4th at the Dodgers, 0-2. May 5th at the Dodgers, 1-4. And May 7th versus the Red Sox, 1-4. So at least the last 2 games, he's got a hit in both. And you got to start somewhere. But like I said in that other video as well, it just takes a couple games and to see some balls fly over the fence for Olson to get going, where he could get on a tear and carry a fantasy team for weeks or even months on end. So right now, well, he's below the Mendoza line, and the struggles have been very concerning in the early going, and he's in a major slump. He's easily a buy low candidate this week, because if he gets going and back to form, you're going to have to pay top price once again. The next hitter, Nick Castellanos, staying in the same division of the Philadelphia Phillies. So this Philly team, they're rolling and playing great baseball. First place in the National League East, and the best team in the NL besides the Dodgers right now. In the year, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, 15 runs scored, a stolen base. Another guy under 200, 197 average, and a 264 on base. So Castellanos last season, he had a great year with Philadelphia, 29 and 106 with a 272 average, but he's off to a slow start. And the other thing with some of these hitters, the weather's got to warm up. The weather's been inconsistent on the East Coast, where some days it's been cold and some days it's starting to warm up 75, 80 degrees. If that weather warms up, and obviously playing in a bandbox over there in Philly, that ball's going to start carrying and the numbers are going to start get going. So right now will be the time, I believe, for owners to go out there and get them. May 3rd versus the Giants, 0-4. May 4th versus the Giants, 1-4, 2 runs, an RBI. May 5th versus the Giants, 1-4 with a run, a stolen base. May 6th versus the Giants, 2-2, a run and a rib. And May 7th versus the Jays, 1-4 with an RBI. So he's actually had an RBI in each of the last 2 games, is Castellanos. He's got 3 hits now in his last 6 at-bats. And maybe that'll start to get him going right now for this Philly team and fantasy owners, because he's too talented of a hitter. And just like Matt Olson and just like Paul Goldschmidt, I don't think in one offseason he totally lost, and he's in a slump and just off to a bad start. And like I said, we just got to wait and see once that weather really gets warm and that ball starts carrying, and it's those hitter months, obviously, from June to August where these hitters really peak. So right now, he's a buy low hitter this week. The next hitter is Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros. So Alex Bregman, it's been a real struggle for him this season. Another guy, maybe the weather's got to warm up for him, or whatever the case may be, but he just can't get anything going on the year. 1 home run, 11 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 200 average, and a 284 on base. So like I mentioned with the other hitters, hitting under 200, and they're too talented at hitters just to lose it in one off season. I know I sound like a broken record, but these guys are too talented. They've had the track record for 5-10 seasons, most of them, where they're going to hit 25-30 home runs, hit 250, 280 range, drive in anywhere from 80, 100 RBIs. And Bregman, he's a free agent as well after the season, where you know he's going to want to put up a good year and get a fat contract in the offseason. May 2nd versus the Guardians, 0-for-4, a run, a stolen base. May 3rd versus the Mariners, 1-for-3 in RBI. May 4th versus Seattle, 0-for-2. May 5th versus Seattle, 1-for-4. And May 7th at the Yankees, 0-for-4. So right now, this team's mightily struggling in the early going is Houston, but I think they're going to get things together. They got too much talent on this roster, especially in the lineup with Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, just to name a few guys. Joey Lorpedo, who was tearing it up in the minors. They called him up a couple weeks ago, and I think Bregman's going to get things going. And this is the time for owners to get him, because once he gets going as well, he could carry your fantasy team for weeks on end. And right now, these owners are definitely frustrated with the starts these big-time hitters have done for their fantasy teams, and they were hard draft picks. I would definitely buy Bregman low this week, and these guys, if you don't got to give up much and they could turn your season around, this is the time to do it. In the 5th and final hitter I look to buy and trade for is Jackson Chourio of the Milwaukee Brewers. I know he's a rookie. I know 20 years old. He got that guaranteed contract to buy out his arbitration years, and he's definitely off to a bad start in his rookie season. 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 14 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, 222 average, and a 267 on base. But the thing with Chourio, he could bring a few things. He'll show some pop. He could steal bases, score runs, and he just has to get on base more and be more patient at the plate. He has struck out 35 times in 108 at-bats, even though it's not that horrible. But Chourio is definitely a 5-2 type of player with the upside, which we've seen from him in the minors. May 3rd at the Cubs, 1-for-2, a run, a stolen base. May 4th at the Cubs, 2-for-4, run. May 5th at the Cubs, 0-for-2. May 6th at the Royals, 1-for-3. And May 7th at the Royals, 1-for-3. So I know it's not much, but the last 2 games, he's had a hit in each of them. And maybe that'll get Chourio going for this Brewer team and possibly fantasy owners. Because like I said, he's still stealing bases. I know the on-base and the batting average isn't good at all, but he could factor in for fantasy owners in other ways. So right now, while he's struggling, and he's got major upside, is Chourio, and he's even out there on the waiver wire in 20% of fantasy leagues. He's definitely a hitter I look to buy low. I know there's been some rumors that they don't want to wait out, maybe possibly longer, and send them down to the minors for a few weeks to straighten things out, but we'll see. But I still would buy Chourio, especially Dynasty and Keeper leagues. This guy could be a cornerstone for your roster for many seasons. So that's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for Week 6 of the fantasy baseball season.